And rapier fighting? The whole bit. Here we go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello, SEA. All right, my name is Richard Marsden. I'm part of the Phoenix Society of Historical Swordsmanship. My day job is a high school history teacher. This is John Patterson. He's Batman. And what we do is we look at the actual historical manuals and then we try to recreate it. So we're going to show you some of the techniques with a variety of weapons. And then we're going to do a little bit of fighting. And at the very end, we're going to transition to rapier. We'll do a bit of rapier, then we're going to hand it over to the SCA rapier guys, and they'll show you some more. So, starting off, we're going to start off with longsword. The manual that we study comes from an Italian by the name of Fiore dei Liberi. He's from northern Italy, and he grew up at an interesting time. There was a war between England and France that went on a very long time. What was it called?
100 Years' War.
100 Years' War is correct, and there were pauses in that war. And during one of the pauses, mercenaries who had no job at that time piled into Italy, and they brought with them their sword fighting arts, and that's what Fiore grew up living with. And what makes Fiore interesting is he actually has a manual that he wrote and drew pictures for, so we have a fairly good idea of what we call generically Italian longsword looked like. So we're going to go through some of the techniques. I'll put the mic down and project. I hear a long sword. Not long, actually. It's the handle itself. It requires two hands like such. And what happens is Fiore showed ways to kind of fight with the weapon. And there are guards, positions you stand in. Fiore named them. So John's going to start going through some positions. This is called the woman's guard. From this guard, John can do some cool stuff. He can cut. He can cut from a different direction. He can stab. Ooh, fooled you. I know. But that's the Italians, yeah? Well, it's only going to get more dirty. He has other positions that he has. We have horse tooth, which blocks everything. He already says so. He actually has an example of uneducated fighters trying to fight a guy in horse tooth. And so I am going to try to cut him in the head. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to try to stab him. Again, I don't know what he's doing. I see him open. I'm going to throw my sword at him. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to actually do that. You know the technique, and it's the same. If you notice, John moves his foot to help his sword. Comes up, he parries, and then he can do what he needs to do. Real simple. Right? Simple stuff. All his techniques were easy once you kind of figured them out. Window. Right? From here, it looks like I can't get him, but he's a really crafty guy. If I just try to keep my sword out there and throw him, he exchanged my point, which is one of the first techniques, and he stabbed me. We do a lot of cool stuff. Long line parries. From here, I don't know how long his sword is. I don't know how close he is to me. If I don't know what I'm doing, he can get me very quickly. Oh no, that's not good. That's not good. Right? He needs that. That's not good either. But Fiore's smart. He knew that most often when you fought with longswords, those swords are going to cross. And there are only three ways they should cross. Left leg forward at the tips. Middle. Or right leg forward. Strong. And you do different things when those swords cross. I'm going to show you some of those things. You like that? It was too fast, wasn't it? You can do me. It's easy enough. And the audience always gets mad. They're like, you touched the sword! It is not a lightsaber. We have used sharp swords and grabbed them and done all sorts of unsafe things with them, and your hand isn't damaged. As long as you get a good grip on that sword, which John has. Before I could do anything, I have problems. I have extra holes in my body that I can do without. You can grab the sword. It's a technique that you got. The stuff that the audience always loves, though, is really messy, violent stuff that ends up in close. So what happens here, we're running forward, I'm going to I bring my pommel to his face. Fiore says, when you bring the pommel to his face, you can make 4 teeth fly out. Because he says, I have done this. Yeah. How many teeth fell out of my mouth? Excuse me, 20 left. Good. longsword is a lever. As I came in, I come up. The sword now comes over to in my hand wherever I need to. I can actually strip the weapon from the hand. Round like that. I go cut it. Oh no, he's grabbed it. What am I going to do? Watch this. Very closely, obviously. Let me do one. Now, Fury's a smart guy. He says, hey, once you get to the complicated techniques, anything that goes past 2 or 3 steps, it's really hard to do. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong. He prefers one and done. Once you cross, you do one thing, and you win. So he shows a lot of complex things that you can do. He's going to try to stab me. Right? He's going to try to stab me again. I'm going to screw up. Oh, I came it too much. I knocked it too far over. Right? And that's what Fury shows. The longsword is a great weapon. And when Fury penned his book, he was an old man. He said so. He said, I give you this book, and it showed not only longsword, it showed dagger techniques, hand-to-hand techniques, spear techniques, one-handed sword techniques, two-handed sword techniques, fighting on horseback, and he showed dirty tricks. And the audience always tells me, tell me the dirty tricks. I will. A pole axe is this large axe with like a metal head at the end. And Fury in his book, he was writing to a noble. And he said, my good lord, I don't want to teach you bad techniques, but there are some dastardly sorts who will take a pole axe, make the metal hollow, put poison in it, that if it got in your eyes, it would blind you. I know, good lord, you would never do that, but here are the ingredients to the poison. Here's a picture of a guy using it. You already taught you how to fight against untrained fighters. The most basic fight is a simple blam. As you pass it here is a much larger man than I. What you do is you're going to do that, try to go real slow, so I'm not going to move. If I do nothing, I'm going to die. But I have no kids and my wife won't miss me, so it's okay. I'm fully insured. But I'm going to do something called villain. Do that again. Remember, he's holding my head. All I'm doing is I bring my sword up and create a ramp. From here, it's the energy that he provides that does the rest. I have a couple of options. I can pass back and cut. I can stab. Depends on what I feel like doing and how hard he comes in and how far forward he's going. It's called the villain's blow. Because the word comes from villain. You know what the word villain is related to? Quite right, sir. Villain comes from an old Latin phrase, villager. Fury didn't like the peasants. Most guys who wrote these manuals didn't want this in the hands of the peasants. The guy who wrote after Fury, about 20 years later, a guy called Body, actually put in his book, hey, don't teach the peasants this stuff. Because it is easy. And if the peasants found out how to do it, knights are going to lose their value. But unfortunately for these knights, for all the cool techniques they have, and their awesome long swords, and all that cool stuff I showed you, didn't matter. A weapon was coming around, and it was starting to make them obsolete. What is it? 4?
It's Christmas. Longbow.
Ranged weapons of any sort. What do you say? Crossbow, longbow, well done, but we identified our English people.
Oh, that's nice.
There's English, I know the language. And firearms of some sort. Starting to make swords a little less valuable. So they switched to different types of swords. We're going to hop. We're going to leave the 1400s, done. We're going to jump into the 1600s, the early 1600s. And here, the Italians got into these. And the Italians realized, hey, big swords on the battlefield are starting to go away. There were other weapons. We'll talk about those today. So they wore swords that had more fashion today. This is the rapier. By the 1600s, it was a thin blade. You could cut with it. It wasn't great at it. You couldn't really use it on a battlefield because if John really didn't like it, he would grab my sword and break them. Yeah, he's got problems. But when two gentlemen fought, they had rules they more or less were supposed to follow. The fighting looked very different. And there were a lot of manuals, which is great. There were a lot of selection of Italian manuals. Some of the techniques